Welcome back to CSEC English. This paper has been requested left and right. The January 2024 paper 1 for CSEC English A. So let's go through it. Please don't mind how crusty my voice sounds. I am not 100% well. I'm a bit under the weather, but I'm still getting this done for you guys. Come along for the ride. Let's see what we have here. Items 1 through 5. Instructions. Each sentence has one word missing. Choose the word which best completes the meaning of each sentence. Mark your choice on the answer sheet. So we'll just fill in the blanks with the words that make the most sense. Number 1, he has been a staunch blank for better healthcare systems for the poor. Alright, the answer is advocate. He's been a staunch advocate. An advocate is a person who lobbies for something, a person who supports a particular cause, a person who wants to see a particular thing or system or person succeed. For example, a children's advocate, that person advocates for children, they support children's rights and stuff like that. Women's advocate, you get the point. So a healthcare system advocate, or a person who advocates for a better healthcare system for the poor, it just means that person wants poor people to have better health, better healthcare. And the other options just don't make sense. A critic is generally a person who reviews, or in this context, criticizes or speaks badly about or disagrees with something. So first of all, you would be quite evil to not want poor people to have better health care. But apart from that, the grammar will be off if you try to use critic here. He has been a staunch critic of. We would say critic of, not critic for. So since you have this for, this is automatically out, just grammatically. Suspect wouldn't make any sense. A suspect is one who may have committed a crime. A person who is being looked at as one of the candidates. Candidates, that's a weird word. And that doesn't make any sense here. And performer doesn't make sense. Like nothing is being performed here. Number 2. Ready-to-wear garments are blank. Great numbers off the racks in stores. This has to be available. Ready-to-wear garments, if they are ready to wear, if they're ready to be worn, then it means they're available. They're available off the racks. 3. The students of the different year groups said they dash the title of most loved teacher on Mr. Rogers. They conferred the title. To confer something is to bestow or to give it to someone else. But we usually confer ceremonial or fancy things like titles, right? Elected wouldn't make sense because most loved teacher isn't like an official position. It's just a title that they made up, right? Amended wouldn't make any sense. To amend something is to change something or add something to it. So laws are often amended. Fabricated, to make something up. To fabricate is to lie or to invent. And that doesn't make sense here. Alright, 4. They were told not to blank the cost of repairing the building. They were told not to, and as we go along, you can pause just before I say the answer and make your attempt, right? They were told not to disclose the cost of the building. They were told not to tell anybody how much it cost. The others just don't make sense. In terms of diction, the words just couldn't possibly work. Number 5, there are many who would try to blank your efforts because of their jealousy. And this has to be a negative word, because if someone is jealous, they're going to try to do something bad, something negative to your efforts. So assist will be out, encourage will be out, and affect is too neutral. It's not really negative. Thwart makes sense. To thwart is to hinder, actually. To thwart is to get in the way of something. And if someone's jealous of you, they're going to get in the way of your efforts. They're going to try to stop you because they're bad mind. Alright. 6 through 10. Error recognition. Some of the following sentences are unacceptable because they contain errors. No sentence contains more than one error. Some of the sentences are accepted as they stand. On the answer sheet, choose one option that best describes each sentence as follows. We're going to choose A if the sentence is too wordy, and they explain what wordy means, repetitive, or contain redundancies. B for cliches or misused metaphors. C if we have bad grammar or bad diction. D if there's no error. Alright, let's look at number 6. They were told to collaborate together to produce the project. If you want to attempt this paper alongside me, you can pause here and attempt all 5 because I'll just be speed running. So they were told to collaborate together, redundant. Collaborate is fine by itself, no need for together, because to collaborate already means to work together. 7. In some traditional wedding ceremonies, money is thrown at the bride and groom. No problems here. Totally fine. If you find an error here, let me know. I can't seem to find any mistakes here. I'm guessing they're trying to trick you into thinking something's redundant because we have money and monies. I don't know what they were thinking, but that might be it. But of course, ceremonies has nothing at all to do with money. Disgusted with the situation, he decided to jump into the saddle and put down his foot. This is going to be B for perhaps a couple of reasons. You could say put down his foot is cliche. You could say that. You could also say that jump into the saddle is a misused metaphor. It might be a metaphor close to that, but it's definitely not that. And put his foot down is actually how this metaphor would be phrased. So it does seem that the diction is a little weird, but it's in the category of a misused metaphor. It's a metaphor that isn't used well, and that could also be considered a cliche. And there's the matter of the jump into the saddle. So yeah, that's a B. 9. Each of the children have an appointment with the principal. If you got this one wrong, this one is C, by the way. If you were not correct, go and watch my subject-verb agreement lessons. Each of the children has. Watch that video and you will see why. 10. He advanced a step or two to meet his attacker, who suddenly became alarmed and retreated back. That's redundant. Nice. Alright, instructions. Some of the following sentences are unacceptable because of inappropriate grammar, idiom, or vocabulary. Some of these sentences are acceptable as they stand. No sentence has more than one inappropriate element. Select the one underlined part that is inappropriate and choose the corresponding letter A, B, C. If the sentence is acceptable as it stands, choose D. 11. The doctor's attempts to resuscitate the patient were futile. This is quite fine. Resuscitate looks weird. I know it does, but it's spelled correctly. Futile is fine. Just means their attempts did not bear any fruit. They failed. And I think where the trick is this apostrophe here. You might be thinking, oh, they should be on the inside. But what if there are multiple doctors? If there are 2 or more doctors, then the apostrophe is fine on the outside. So this is fine. 12. If Antonio's attitude changes, there will be a vast improvement in his performance. No, there will not, because this there is wrong. This should be THERE. There. Nice. So that's B. 13. One of the admirable characteristics of the young is that they are not easily scared. This is a repeat question, but I think there was an error in it last time I saw it. So even though CSEC likes to repeat lots and lots of questions, be careful not to just try to memorize answers. Sometimes they change a few details, and that can change the answer. In this case, there's no error. One of the admirable characteristics of the young is, I think at one point they had R here, which was wrong, is correct. because the subject is one of. One of the characteristics is. So that's fine. Watch my subject-verb agreement video if you're confused. Alright, 14. Since so much passengers were in the taxi, we can stop it here. Passengers, this is the countable noun. We can count 1 passenger, 2 passengers, 3 passengers. So we need many instead of much. 15. As John listened to the lesson being taught, he began to lose interest? I don't think so. I think he began to lose interest. L-O-S-E. There we go. Alright, again, pause here if you wish and work these by yourself. Let's do it. We're looking at opposites. Each sentence in this section has 1 word underlined. Choose from the 4 suggested answers the word which is closest to opposite in meaning to the underlined word. Here we go. She paid meticulous attention to her work as she attached the beads to the costume. Meticulous means very careful, very detailed. So if we're looking for the opposite, we can eliminate all of these because they're all similar in meaning. We're left with scant. So even if you didn't know the word scant, just by elimination, you would encounter the answer there. 17. They lived in a large, sprawling modern house in a very remote area of the parish. And we're looking for the opposite of remote. So what does remote mean? Means kind of far away from everywhere else, far from civilization, not very populated, kind of out of the way, like very, very, very rural. The opposite of that here would be built up. Built up, or city, urban, populous. Right, so these make no sense. Historic has nothing to do with remote. And well-kept, the opposite of well-kept would be something like dilapidated or something like that. And depressed doesn't make any sense here. I guess depressed geographically means, like sunken or in a valley or, a depression, which a mountain or something like that would be the opposite, like something on the top of a hill. Okay, 18. James had a hatred for things that crawl. The opposite of hating something is being fond of it or liking it. So hatred, dislike wouldn't work since that's a synonym or almost a synonym. Fear wouldn't work since fear and hatred are quite close, and respect just has nothing to do with hatred. The views expressed by Mr. Jones were inconsistent with those of the committee. Inconsistent, not lining up, not aligning, not being the same, being very different. Opposite of that is compatible, matching. They're a good match. The rest these don't make sense. 20. The airline conveyed the new flight information to the passengers. The opposite of conveying is to withhold. Right? Conveyed, withheld. To withhold information is to keep it to yourself. Remember this question up here. They were told not to disclose the cost, right? Not to tell anybody. All right. Oh boy, I hate these questions. Why do they exist? Do your best here and then on pause when you're ready. Okay, revise each of the following sentences according to the directions that follow it. Do not change the meaning of the original sentence. Look at options A to D for the word or phrase which best suits the revised sentence and mark your choice on the answer sheet. Now, the instructions are going to be the same. The instruction is the same for all of these, for all 5, which is to begin the sentence with a particular phrase. And when you begin the sentence with that phrase, you'll have to choose which of these 4 options will come next. Which of these 4 options will follow in the sentence if you switch around the words so it starts with this. It's a weird type of question. And they're very tough. They're very, very tough, actually. All right, 21. I saw 2 men jogging around the savannah, and they later proved to be Olympic track stars. Answer is that. The new sentence would be, the 2 men that I saw jogging around the savannah later proved to be Olympic track stars. Right? So if you were to change around this sentence so that it begins with the two men instead of beginning with I saw, then the word that would have to be in the sentence, not these. Now you might be thinking, what about whom? The two men whom I saw. That wouldn't be right. It's almost right. But who would actually be right? The two men who I saw. It has to do with whether the men are object or subject pronouns. I think I discussed that in one of my grammar lessons, so check that out. So the two men that I saw. 21a. 22. The cricket match ended abruptly when many of the spectators stormed the field. If we start the sentence with, many of the spectators stormed the field, next would have to be so. Many of the spectators stormed the field, so the cricket match ended abruptly. During my time at school, I was involved in extracurricular activities. The new sentence would be, I was involved in extracurricular activities while I was at school. None of the other options can work to complete the sentence properly without changing the meaning. We visited the zoo and then we went to see the display at the museum in the city. We went to see the display at the museum in the city after visiting the zoo. Right? If you went to the zoo first, you went to see the display after. Last one here, and this one is quite a strange question. I enjoy having a room of my own and I try hard to take care of it. The best option here is since. However, the sentence that it creates is not a perfect sentence, but it's definitely better than the other three. So the new sentence could be, I try hard to take care of my room since it is mine. Or maybe, I try hard to take care of my room since I enjoy having it. The sentence gets weird. The sentence either sounds a little bit grammatically awkward, or it sounds repetitive if you repeat the word room. But it's the only one that makes sense, but just wouldn't be appropriate here because there's no level of contrast in this sentence above. Unless also would make sense, although wouldn't make sense. Since is the only one that makes sense. I could rephrase this sentence, but I probably wouldn't start with I try hard. If I want to make the sentence so natural, I would probably say, since I enjoy having a room of my own, I try hard to take care of it. Anyway, since is the answer. It's not a good question, but this is the best answer we have. Alright, on to the first poem on the paper. This is a repeated poem. The poem is repeated, and most or all of these questions are actually repeated as well. So what I'll do is I'll have the poem on the left, questions on the right. And you can pause here, read the poem and attempt all of these questions. So this poem here, Forgive My Guilt, we have a person, a boy, when I was a boy, and he lay in the grass with his gun. Some years ago, and he shot two birds. He injured them gravely so that they could not fly. And he feels lots of guilt because of that. He remembers the birds' cries. He feels very badly for what he did to the birds. That's what this poem is about, right? So I think I analyzed this poem a bit more deeply in one or two other videos, so I won't go too in-depth into the poem itself, but I'll answer the questions and provide evidence with reasonable detail. The title of the poem, Forgive My Guilt, suggests that the poet is, and if the poet is asking for forgiveness, and I don't even like the word poet here, CSEC, please use speaker next time. Anyhow, it suggests that the speaker is admitting his guilt, because if he's asking for forgiveness, he must be admitting that he did something wrong. He's not denying anything, and he doesn't try to prove anything. And if he were suppressing his guilt, he wouldn't be talking about it. 27. The phrase, the air ran blue as the flowers, in line 5. Let's find line 5. The air ran blue as the flowers. It's an example of what? If the air is running blue, we know the air is not literally blue. It could mean that the air is cold. It could mean that there is some tension. And we do see that comparison between the air and the blue flowers. So it's a metaphor. There's no pun, no hyperbole, no alliteration. So you could just eliminate those three and happen upon the right answer. 28. The tone of the poem changes. Let's make this a little bigger. The tone of the poem changes from one of factual recollection to one of emotional response. At which of the following lines does the change occur? All right, let's look at the options we have. We have line 8. Where do we start to see some emotions coming into the poem? 5, 6, 7, 8. My gun went off. They ran with broken wings. No emotion there. Let's check line 10. But they swam with their heads high out to sea. No emotion there. Let's check 11. They cried like two sorrowful high flutes. We see emotion here. Cried is a little bit of an indication that someone or something might be in pain, but the real indicator of emotion is sorrowful. Now we finally see the speaker feeling something. But let's check line 14 just to be safe. Line 14 says, crying out to their kind in the blue. There is some emotion, but the fact is, there is no emotional response, no great emotional response from the speaker here. Plus, even if there were, the first emotional response was here. And we're looking for where the change started, from fact to emotion. So it's going to be line 11. 29. What effect does the change of tone from factual recollection to emotional response produce? So it's building off the previous question. Now that we have moved from just talking about what happened to reflecting on how we feel about it, that creates a contrasting mood. Because now we're not just thinking about events reflectively, we're thinking about events from an emotional reflection, and now we're feeling something. So the mood changes once we hit line 11 going down. From lines 1 to 10, the poet could have continued to boast about killing the birds. We don't know. It's in line 11 that we start to really know how the speaker feels, right? I mean, there is the hint of the title, but the emotion starts to kick in at line 11. So there's a contrast in mood, meaning there's a significant change in mood here, between here and here, basically. Contrast in mood. And D might look a little bit tempting, but we're not feeling sympathy toward the person. We're meant to feel sympathy toward the birds. 30. The following words in the poem all share the same connotation. Sorrowful, crying, broken. Okay, let's find those words. Let's find them. Let's find sorrowful. Where's sorrowful? Sorrowful, let's find. Okay, let's get a different color. Yellow. Let's find sorrowful. Let's find crying. And let's find broken. So they all share the same connotation or the same general meaning or emotional response. Which of the following phrases in the poem has a similar connotation to these words? So before we even look at the options, we need to figure out what the connotation is amongst these three. And they are all conveying that the birds are in a pitiful state, right? They're in a pitiful state. They're poor things. They're hurting. They're victims. So which of these four phrases continues that connotation? Let's see. A says their heads held high. This is not saying that the birds are poor things. This is more indicating the pride of something. heads held high. Jagged ivory bones, ooh, that's definitely it. Jagged ivory bones, showing how damaged and broken the birds were after being shot. But let's check C and D just to be sure. Walk that headland, doesn't match. Two eerie things, that doesn't match. The two eerie things might sound a little tempting because they might be saying the airiness might be linked to the fragility of the birds, but that would more be linking to the gracefulness of the birds as they would be taking flight. But these birds will not be taking flight because their bones are jagged, right? They got shot. 31. All of the following phrases in the poem describe physical characteristics of the two birds, except what? Where don't we see physical characteristics? Okay. Slimmer's dream things, slim, that's physical. Ran like quicksilver, the motion of the birds, the physical motion, that's physical. Slender, flutes of sorrow, not physical. This is auditory imagery, describing not how the birds look, but how they sound. Now, slender is meant to trick us because slender kind of means slim, but the slenderness is not a physical description. It is instead a description of the sound. Slender what? Not slender legs, but slender flutes of sorrow. And then let's check the wild, airy, beautiful, clearly physically descriptive. 32. The writer uses the phrase denied the air in line 21 to suggest what? If they were denied the air, this is the line, two airy things forever denied the air because their wings were broken and they were shot, they could no longer fly. They couldn't join the other plovers in line 15 and soar in the skies. They were unable to fly. Of course, they did care to fly, and nothing suggests that they couldn't breathe at that point. And D doesn't make any sense. 33. So remember, from line 11, we switched from just recollecting facts to being sympathetic towards the birds, feeling sorry for these birds, and exploring the speaker's guilt. So it has to be sympathetic. The others are just crazy. 34. The main theme of the poem is, and this one is a little tricky for some students, but it's actually A, remorse of conscience. The speaker spends more than half of the poem just being sorry for what he did, feeling sorry, feeling that sympathy, feeling his guilt. The poem does mention the death of the birds, but that's not the main theme. That's just what triggers the speaker to feel that remorse. So it's not the main theme. And he's not forgiven in this poem. There's no indication that anybody forgave, that even he forgave himself. And sin committed is quite vague, like what sin? And it's not just about the sin, but it's really about this person seeking forgiveness for his sin. Alright, 35. To which of the following sentence, oh boy, to which of the following sentences does the poem, oh, I have to pause, does the poem most appeal? This is going to be sight and hearing. There's not much in the way of touch, not much in the way of smell, so we can eliminate those and we're left with sight and hearing. And let's just glance over at the poem to see a few examples. Air ran blue, that's sight. Two birds on golden legs, that's sight. Slimmer's dream things, sight. Ran like quicksilver, sight. My gun went off, hearing. Cried like two sorrowful high flutes, hearing. Jagged ivory bones, sight. Crying out to their kind, hearing. Criers went out one day, I still hear them, hearing. Sounds, okay, we get the point. That's it for that poem. The sisters. So yeah, my voice will not make it through this thick passage. So pause here and read it for yourself, and then I'll show you the questions. Okay, here you have the questions on the right. So do your best to answer these. Okay, very, very, very quick summary of this passage. We have a queen. Queen, her name is Martha. The queen has a sister. So we have a queen, Martha. Queen's sister, Ilana, and the queen invited her sister many times to come over to her country or whatever, which is Hora, and saying that she would always be welcome. But the prodigal sister never replied. This queen never, the queen's sister never took her up on the offer. So they're not very close. Maybe Martha is trying to be close to her sister, but the sister doesn't care to respond. And this sister, Ilana, she was married to Iako, right? But things got rough between Iako and Ilana. Their marriage got rough. Their marriage was stormy. And eventually, Iako, he was thrown by wild horses, broke his back. And then Ilana got stressed out about this. She lost her beauty and her mind. She went crazy, and then she ran away. She escaped her keepers. She just ran away. The queen, because she loves her sister, apparently she was the one trying to make contact with her over here, right? She loved her sister. So she summoned Leha. Leha seems to be the queen's right-hand woman, the person the queen trusts the most. Maybe a leader, or maybe some kind of advisor, or something like that. And so she sends Leha to gather some search parties and search the whole kingdom, all the kingdoms and all the countries, whatever. Search for, go and find my sister, Ilana. And they search. And down here, we see that after many years, Leha comes back. Everybody comes back and tells the queen, I'm sorry, we can't find your sister. That's it. The queen's sister ran away. She sent Leha to go and find her sister. Leha came back, no sister. That is the point. That is the passage here. It's very interesting. I hope you actually read it. Let's check the questions. Question 36 on the right here. The first two sentences of the passage suggest that the relationship between the sisters was. So let's look at the first two sentences. Alright, so these sentences indicate that one sister is trying to reach the other, but the other sister isn't trying to respond to the one. So that's a strained relationship. They're not very close. Estranged or distant would have been better, but we don't have those words. We have strained, so we have to work with strained. Forgiving doesn't make sense, no evidence of that. They're not aggressive, and they're definitely not affectionate. 37. Their marriage was a stormy one in lines 4 to 5 implies that. Let's see. So the marriage between Iako and Ilana was stormy, even to the point where the marriage failed and Ilana ran away and stuff like that. So if something is stormy, it means there are too many problems, one behind the other. You're overwhelmed. You're in a storm, right? Caught in a figurative storm. So saying it was unpleasant would be an understatement. That's not strong enough. And saying they didn't see eye to eye would be much of an understatement, because in every marriage, people don't see eye to eye all the time. But saying you have a stormy marriage means it's fraught with difficulty. There are just too many problems. And C is just CSEC trying to be funny. They do that from time to time. 28. The instruction, go to the ends of the earth. Line 12. Go to the ends of the earth if you have to, but bring my sister back to Hora. Is it Hora or Laura? Is it LL or H? I'm not sure. Eora? Elora? Yeah, I'm not sure whether this is Eora, Laura, or Hora. But whatever the case, go to the ends of the earth. Search everywhere you can. Just get my sister back. So clearly, this means that she should have searched, or they should have searched every accessible land. Go everywhere you can. Not just in that kingdom, not just here, not just there, but every accessible land. 39. The literary device used in the phrase "as delicate as spiders' webs" is a simile. English B people, that's easy, right? Comparing two things using as or like. So, what was it that was compared to spiders' webs? Lines as delicate as spiders' webs. So the lines in her face are compared to spiders' webs using as. Have a simile. 40. The writer implies that Leha was. So Leha is the person the queen summoned to go and get the search parties organized and go and search for Ilana. So this person couldn't have been a mere traveler. She couldn't have been just a household servant. And there's no indication that she's Martha's sister. No indication of that. So I guess she's the leader of the queen's army. It wasn't directly stated in the passage that she's the leader of an army, but if she's the one organizing the search parties and stuff like that, then yeah, that's the most plausible answer. And it does say in line 10, the queen immediately summoned Leha, right, and ordered her. So that makes sense. 41. Which of the following is an example of contrast? Where do we see two opposite things happening concurrently? Let's see. A, she had lost both her beauty and her mind. Nope, no contrast there. B, she had vanished without a trace. No contrast. C, her hair was streaked with grey. No contrast. D, lighting up her dark face. Lighting dark. Contrast. 42. The cloud of white hair, line 24, is an example of metaphor because her hair isn't literally a cloud. It's just compared to a cloud because it's white and fluffy. 43. The style of writing in this extract can best be described as narrative. It's telling a story or a piece of a story. It's not factual. There is some description, but it's not just descriptive. We have dialogue, we have characters and stuff like that. And it's definitely not argumentative. 44. The word that is closest in meaning to turbulent in line 27. Line 27. Turbulent rivers. And somehow all the hardships she had endured traveling across the parched savannas, through densely wooded valleys, over mountains, and down the rough rivers. Rough. Placid is kind of the opposite. Demanding doesn't make sense. Manageable. It wouldn't be manageable if it's turbulent, right? It's just very rough. Alright, that's that. Another passage. Alright, again, pause here and read and attempt. Passage on the left, questions on the right. Okay, let's get it done. We only have 5 questions. Why create further division? So just a very, 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 very super quick summary. By having more and more same-sex or single-sex schools, meaning all boys schools or all girls schools, we're just creating unnecessary division amongst students, amongst children, and this is going to prevent them from socializing properly. They're going to miss out on being able to interact with the opposite sex, and then that's going to affect them after they graduate. That's basically the gist of it. So let's get into the questions. 45. According to the Financial Times UK, which of the following statements is true? Let's see. There are only 60 single-sex schools at present. That is not stated anywhere here. I think the only mention of 60 is that 60 local authorities. Yeah, in 60 local authorities, there are no single-sex schools, so that's wrong. B, all single-sex private schools have been converted to co-ed. All of them? It says, in the past decade, 130 single-sex private schools, too, have gone co-educational or closed entirely. And up here it says, for the past 30 years, the number of single-sex schools, state schools in the UK, has dwindled from nearly that amount to that amount. So not all of them have converted. Wrong. And C, there has been an increase in the number of single-sex schools. Nope, it just said that the single-sex schools, that number is dwindling or decreasing. Many state and private single-sex schools have been converted. So let's look at where D occurs in the passage here. Where do we see D? For the past 30 years, the number of single-sex schools, state schools or public schools in the UK has dwindled from this number to this number. So lots of state schools have been converted from single-sex to co-ed. And where's this here? And also, in the past decade, 130 single-sex private schools too have gone co-ed. So many state and many private schools have converted from single-sex to co-ed. 46. Which of the following words may best be used to replace influence in line 6? It would appear that the country that has the greatest influence on our education system has very little regard for such research. So the irony is, the UK, there was a study done in the UK that suggested that there are positives for single-sex, for implementing more single-sex schools, but the UK doesn't care about that research, even though they're the ones who did it, right? They're clearly getting rid of same-sex schools in favor of co-ed schools. So which word could we use to replace influence? It would have to be impact. It's just a synonym. It makes sense. It would appear that the country that has the greatest impact on our education system, because we know that the UK education system, that's kind of what the Caribbean, the whole CXC style thing is modeled off, right? 47. Which group is the writer most concerned about? And this one might not be immediately obvious. It seems as if D should make some sense, because we can probably get rid of A, right? I think A isn't an option and C isn't an option. B and D look kind of close. For D, it mentioned those who have no siblings or only siblings of the same gender, right? That's mentioned down here. This is especially so. So in single-sex schools, children are deprived of the opportunity to fully develop their intra and interpersonal skills, so crucial for their emotional intelligence. And this is especially so for those who have no siblings or who only have siblings of the same gender. So are these persons who the writer is most concerned about? No. The writer is most concerned about those who graduate from our school system. That is what is shown in this entire passage. And D is actually not a complete answer, because D says those who have no siblings or only siblings of the same gender. But it would have to be those who have no siblings or only siblings of the same gender who graduate from our school system in single-sex schools. You would have to qualify that all the way. It's not just about people who have no siblings or siblings of the same gender. They're really, the writer is really talking about how going to single-sex schools versus not going to single-sex schools impacts those who graduate from our school system. So it has to be more general than that. B. The writer is concerned about our graduates. All right, 48. What is the speaker attempting to do in the passage? Are they warning students about the danger of single-sex schools? I don't think they're warning students at all. Are they supporting the decision to implement single-sex schools? Nope, the opposite. Are they criticizing those who are in favor of single-sex schools? They're not criticizing anybody, really. They're more criticizing the decision or the policy or the fact that single-sex schools exist. D, they're arguing for the psychological well-being over academic performance. Right? Back to the question we looked at up here. The research referred to above is said to extol the academic benefit of education in single-sex schools. But should we focus only on academic performance and exam results? We must assess the impact, blah, 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 blah. So it goes on to tell us that it's not just about academic performance. Even more important is how school helps students to holistically develop and to develop their inter- and intrapersonal skills. 49. The main purpose of the title, Why Create Further Division, is to do what? Now, I spent many hours on this question because, man, this question is too good. There are so many right-looking answers. Whew, I'm going to go with A. I'm going to go with A. Yeah, my students and I discussed this one for a long time. But, the title, Why Create Further Divisions? I think the main purpose is to create or to arouse curiosity. Now, it does ask a very important question, doesn't it? But the question does not have sufficient context because it's in the title, so we don't know what the division is about. We don't know who's being divided and how. So I don't think the main purpose of the title is just to ask the question, because we don't know what the question means. We don't know what it means right now because we haven't yet read the passage. Also, we can't say that it's to state a point of view, because what is the point of view being stated in the question? We don't even know what the division is about. And D can be ruled out by that same logic. So the only thing the title does, because it's the first 4 words we read, is it gets us curious, like, what divisions? How are we creating these divisions? And we can start to prime ourselves by asking ourselves these questions. And then by getting into it now, because we are curious, we start to understand the points being made. So yeah, rhetorical question as a title aroused curiosity for the reader. And we have another repeat passage here. Alright, as usual, pause here, do your best to read and answer. Okay, I won't read all of this. It's a repeat passage, and it's not very difficult. Some person complained, wrote this letter to the editor, kind of complaining about how the music is too loud near her and she can't study, she can't focus. That's just it. So let's answer these questions now. Okay, 50 on the right here. I just can't take it anymore. Line 1 implies that the writer is what? I just can't take it anymore. They could be crying, but we're not sure. You could say that without crying. They could be arguing, but we're not sure. You could say it even in a calm voice. You don't have to be arguing. You could be shouting, but we're not sure. You could say it, I just can't take it anymore. What we know for a fact is this person is hurting. They're hurt. Whatever is happening to them, we're not sure yet. It's just the first sentence, but they can't take it. They're hurting. They need the pain to stop. 51. Which of the following devices does the writer use in paragraph 2 to explain her plight? Let's see. Paragraph 2, the answer is rhetorical question. And where do we see examples? Let's check. We have one here. We have one here. We have another one here. We have yet another one here. Yeah, so lots of rhetorical questions. And by asking these questions, we're able to reflect on her plight, her problem, her situation, and try to, she's trying to gain some empathy from us. We can imagine being in her situation. 52. The following sentence, I work hard and every report so far indicates that I am an above average student, in line 5, suggests that the writer, this one shouldn't be too hard. She's a hardworking student and she really wants to sustain this. She wants to continue getting good grades, and this loud music is getting in her way. It's a problem. All right, so she wants to sustain this. She is pleading throughout the whole thing, but this particular line doesn't indicate pleading. And it does. I don't think she's trying to boast. She's just saying she wants to continue being a good student, being a great student. And D, she's not saying she's about to fail, but she might be saying, she might be unable to sustain her good performance if this loud music continues to be a problem. 53. What effect does the writer achieve when she says, can you imagine my mother and her 16-year-old daughter going to this place in the midst of riotous drinking? Let's look at that. That's lines 19, 20. So just imagine this girl and her mother, right? Two ladies going into this place that is stinking with rum and crazy, vulgar, lecherous men screaming and dancing and playing dominoes, loud music blasting. And these women are going in there, just so that this little girl can get a reprieve and be able to actually study and do her schoolwork. Definitely we're supposed to admire this act of courage, right? It's not criticism, because they're not going there to drink and play dominoes with the men. They're going there to perhaps complain or even, beg the men to turn the music down or talk to the bartender or the whoever owns the place. Or maybe they're gonna go and, scream at them, try to fight. I don't know. So it wouldn't be based on that. And I don't think we're supposed to be shocked, because we're kind of being led up to this sense of desperation. Like, what are they going to do about this situation? Clearly, they're going to have to do something. And this is what they do. There's not much shock. And by this time, we kind of understand what the situation is. So the shock value isn't really there. And we understand why they feel the need to go. It's not that surprising. 54. This kind of writing can best be described as emotive. We see that, pleading, begging. We see that sympathy and empathy being elicited. And this person is hurting. They can't take it anymore. Very emotive. Okay. The last of it. This ad. Here we go. All right. Pause, read, attempt. All right, let's blitz it through. The main purpose of this advertisement is to encourage better energy use, right? It says here energy efficiency tips, and it's telling you how to save energy, how to use less energy. And so that's the main thing. 56, how much energy do fluorescent lights use? That's going to be A, 70% less than incandescent lights. Where do we see that? You see that up here. Number 7, use fluorescent lights instead of incandescent lights. Compact fluorescent lights use up to 75% less energy than incandescent lights. 75% less energy than incandescent lights. And 57, the advertisement emphasizes that motion sensors are important because they are efficient and provide security. Right? They provide security. Where do we see that? Number 3, it says use motion sensors for outdoor lights. They're a good security measure that don't waste energy. 58. Which of the following is not stated in the advertisement? This is not stated anywhere. Just read and you will see that's not stated at all. And the last two, 49. What information in the advertisement? What the information in the advertisement would be most useful to? And it's kind of weird that CSEC has changed this answer from householders to housewives, but it's still the answer. It's a bit of a weird move. Yeah, I wonder what the thought process behind that was. But it's definitely going to be housewives. You wouldn't be trying to teach electricians or contractors about how to save energy with certain light bulbs. They would know that. They would be the professionals. And the light company would maybe be happy if you were to use more energy, right? So you can pay more money. They would more likely try to sell you stuff than try to help you to save money and save energy, right? And if we look at the actual instructions here, let me zoom in. Keep fixtures and bulbs clean. Who do you think they're telling to do that? Electricians or housewives? The electricians out there aren't going to come inside and clean your bulbs. Turn off bulbs when leaving the room. You think when you leave your room, a contractor is just going to appear and turn off your light for you? No. So it's got to be someone living in the house, right? And these don't make the other options just don't make sense. Last one. The literal device used in item 7 of the advertisement is, what is it doing? Contrast, showing the differences between the ability of the fluorescent lights and incandescent lights to save energy. It's contrast because they're very different. One saves energy, one does not. Right? This one saves that amount of energy. And A doesn't make sense because it's not showing similarities between them. C doesn't make sense because they're not both storing energy. And D doesn't make sense because there's no imagery here. So that's it. That's this paper, guys. Good luck in your studies. Bye-bye.